Santa Blandina, an unshakable faith in the Colosseum. Santa Blandina is one of the most revered Christian martyrs of antiquity, whose life and testimony continue to inspire faith and courage to this day. Blandina was a young slave who, despite her humble social status and apparent physical fragility, displayed a spiritual strength and unshakable faith that made her a symbol of resistance and devotion. Born in 166, she died around the year 177, at the age of 15, during a fierce persecution of Christians in the city of Lyon, in Gaul, present-day France, under Emperor Marcus Aurelius. She was martyred in the Roman amphitheater after enduring brutal tortures for refusing to renounce her Christian faith. She bore the torture while repeating the phrase, "I am a Christian." She was tortured on a grill before being thrown to a bull and ultimately beaten to death. The story of Blandina, also known as Blandina of Lyon, takes place during a time of intense religious persecution against the emerging Christianity. When believers were seen as a threat to the Roman Empire due to their refusal to worship pagan gods and Caesar, at that time, Christians were often denounced, imprisoned, and subjected to brutal tortures, all to force them to renounce their faith. Blandina was one of many victims of this persecution, but her testimony stood out for her courage in the face of imminent death. Tied to a column, she was whipped, beaten, and exposed to wild beasts in the amphitheater. Her physical endurance was astonishing to those who observed her, which further heightened admiration for her spiritual strength. According to historical and hagiographic accounts, Blandina endured a series of cruel tortures. However, none of the physical punishments could shake her faith or make her deny Christ. She was seen as a true heroine, not for her physical strength, but for her conviction and trust in God. In addition to the aspects already mentioned, it is important to highlight the spiritual and theological dimension that the martyrdom of Santa Blandina represents for the Christian faith. At that time, the testimony of martyrs was considered the seed of the Church, a phrase coined by Tertullian that highlighted how the blood shed by the faithful did not destroy Christianity, but strengthened and propagated it. In a world where physical slavery dominated her body, she experienced the spiritual freedom that only faith can provide. With her courage and faith, Blandina became one of the most precious seeds, nurturing the growth of the early church. Her resistance in the face of torture is a sublime example of how faith can serve as a shield against suffering and injustice. In an era when women's roles in society were extremely limited and marked by submission, Blandina emerges as an example of spiritual leadership and courage. Blandina demonstrated that true freedom is not found in external conditions, but in the soul that trusts in God. This duality between human fragility and divine strength is one of the elements that make her story so touching and relevant. Just as the blessing multiplied among the people, may this video also reach many lives for the glory of God. Another point worth emphasizing is Blandina's role as a female martyr. For her and the early Christians, suffering was not merely a punishment or a tragic accident, but a participation in the passion of Christ, a means of sanctification and a path to resurrection. In our era, marked by many forms of persecution, discrimination, and religious intolerance, her life serves as a powerful reminder that faith can remain strong even when everything seems to be against us. Courage encourages us to face challenges with hope and to never lose trust in God, who is the ultimate source of our strength. This perspective does not minimize the pain but transforms it, giving it a purpose and hope that go beyond the present. Her life and martyrdom challenge us to look at the injustices of our time, such as violence against women, worker exploitation, human trafficking, and all forms of oppression that still persist. From Renaissance paintings to liturgical hymns, her example continues to resonate, inviting the faithful to a life of deep commitment to the gospel. Remembering Blandina calls us to act with justice, solidarity, and love, defending human rights and promoting the dignity of every person. Her testimony proves that the strength of faith transcends social, gender, and cultural barriers, serving as a universal call for all Christians, regardless of their position in society. Her spiritual leadership and example of faith break historical paradigms, pointing to a greater appreciation of the female presence in community life and the living of faith. In a time marked by constant ideological conflicts, religious persecutions in some regions of the world, her story reminds us that, even in the darkest moments, hope and trust in God can illuminate the path and sustain the human spirit. In various forms of intolerance, her story inspires us to maintain the firmness of faith and courage in the face of adversity. She challenges us to live authentically, resist injustices, and embrace suffering with meaning. Knowing that God is present in every step of our journey. Regarding canonization, Santa Blandina was recognized as a saint before the formal establishment of the canonization process by the Church, which was only systematized many centuries later, specifically in the 12th century. Thus, her canonization is considered pre-congregation, meaning she was venerated as a saint from the earliest times of Christianity, based on the testimony of martyrs. See you in the next video with more inspiring stories like this one. The example of Blandina, a slave who became a martyr for her faith, challenges us to fight against these injustices and promote true freedom, one that arises from dignity and respect for life. If this content has edified your life, just like the manna sustained the people in the desert, give it a like and write amen in the comments. The impact of Blandina's story also transcends the religious sphere and touches on profound social reflections. Furthermore, the strength of Blandina's testimony helps us understand the value of suffering lived with meaning. In art and literature, the figure of Blandina has inspired countless representations that seek to convey her courage and unwavering faith. Finally, it is important to highlight that the example of Santa Blandina is not limited to her time. Santa Blandina today. Today, the testimony of Santa Blandina remains profoundly relevant. The contemporary reality, although different from antiquity, still presents challenges for those seeking to live Christian values authentically and fully. Moreover, the issue of human dignity continues to be a central theme, especially in light of the various forms of modern slavery, such as human trafficking, child labor, and the exploitation of minorities. In the Church, the memory of Santa Blandina is celebrated as a symbol of perseverance, especially for communities facing persecution and discrimination. Her courage is a call for Christians to be steadfast in their faith, but also active in defending human rights and proclaiming the gospel of love and justice. Ultimately, the figure of Blandina also invites us to reflect on the role of women in the Church and society. Conclusion: the life and martyrdom of Santa Blandina is a powerful testimony of unconditional love for God and the strength of faith in the face of adversity. Santa Blandina, with her courage and unshakable faith, transcended the barriers of her time and remains today an example for all Christians. In a world where so many voices are lost amid intolerance and violence, Blandina's testimony calls us to be lights, to remain faithful to our convictions, and to work toward building a more just, supportive, and humane society. May her memory inspire each of us to renew our faith, perseverance, and commitment to Christian values, remembering that true freedom and true strength come from God, who never abandons those who trust in Him. If you resonated with this inspiring story, be sure to share this video with someone who needs to know about Santa Blandina. Hit the notification bell, subscribe to the channel, and give us a like.